can't believe I'm here, playing for my life tonight.
I can't believe I'm here, I made it, I'm playing for my life tonight. I'm a shining light. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here, playing for our life tonight. Yeah, I'm playing for our life tonight.
Welcome, friends. Thanks for joining me today on Kingdom Driven Sports. I wanted to put out my Week 5 NFL picks, especially before the Thursday night football game between the 49ers and the Rams. So we're actually going to start there. But I do hope that you're having a wonderful day so far. And thank you for joining me for this episode. So let's start with the Thursday night football game between the Niners and the Rams. At the time that I gathered information, the Rams were 5.5 point favorites. I do know, I believe it was yesterday that it was announced that Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall would not be playing in this game. So I'm not sure if the point spread changed, but I do have my prediction. I have a lot of faith in Kyle Shanahan and his ability to game plan, especially with a familiar foe, if you will, with the Rams. I think this will be closer than people anticipate because it is a rivalry game, a divisional game. But I do think the Rams still come out on top. And even though they're 5.5 point favorites, I think it's a 2-point game with the Rams winning 26-24. I think Mac Jones will have a solid game. But with all the injuries they are facing, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and that Rams defense will be too much for the Niners to overcome. I have the Rams winning 26-24. We then have the Sunday morning game in London between the Vikings and the Browns. The Vikings just got done playing in Dublin, Ireland against the Steelers. The Vikings are 3.5 point favorites in this game, but I feel an upset on this one. I think the Cleveland Browns end up winning. That defense is spectacular. I know Minnesota's defense is also very good. Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator. But I want to see how Dillon Gabriel does. And I know Joe Flacco offers experience and stability, but Dillon Gabriel is like a wild card. So we'll see if he has success like Jackson Dart did in his debut against the Chargers. I'm going to say that the Browns win this game, and Dillon Gabriel does just enough to win this game, and Cleveland comes out on top 27-23. Again, that's 27 Browns, 23 Vikings. We'll see if this ends up being the case. I could be completely wrong on this one, but I'm going with my gut feeling, which usually means it's 50-50. Moving on from there, we have the 1 p.m. slot on Sunday, and we'll start with the Raiders versus the Colts. The Colts are 6.5 point favorites. I think the Colts are playing well. I think they're on pace to win the AFC South. Right now, I don't really see... the Jaguars, possibly. I know I don't want to count them out because the Jaguars' defense is incredible. They have the most takeaways so far through 4 weeks in the NFL. They have a great offensive line and a great running game, so definitely don't want to count the Jaguars out. But I'm very impressed with the way the Colts have been playing as well. And so I think it's going to be a battle between those two teams for the AFC South division. But in this game, the Colts are playing the Raiders, and the Raiders have not impressed me. I thought they would do better with Pete Carroll there, but I think I fell into the trap of thinking that in year one, everything would turn around for the Raiders or that they would be more competitive. I still think they have some pieces that they need. In this game, I have the Colts winning 31-22, covering the spread. I think the Raiders are still in the rebuilding process and are a couple pieces away. The next game in the 1 p.m. slot is the Cowboys as 2.5 point favorites over the Jets. And I do think the Cowboys win this game. The Jets are they're not having a good year. I don't see them really making a playoff push unless something drastic happens. And the Cowboys are actually playing better than what I expected on offense anyway. So I think that the Cowboys win this game to go into the Meadowlands and get this win over the Jets 28-24. The next game on this 1 p.m. slot is a really interesting matchup. It is between the Denver Broncos and the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 3.5. I think this is going to be somewhat of a defensive battle because you're talking about two great defenses. The Broncos had one of the best defenses last year, and I think they have another elite defense this year. And then, of course, the Eagles, they have a championship defense. I know certain pieces are missing or left from last year's team, but they still have a great defense. And so I think it's going to be somewhat of a defensive battle. The Eagles are again favored by 3.5 points. I think they do win, but not by 3.5. I think they win 24-21 by 3 points. And I think it's a really good game. I think it's going to be a game where the offenses are going to have to fight for every yard, for every point. But it'll be a great defensive battle between the Super Bowl champions and a playoff team who is on the rise and looks like they're going to have a bright future. As much as I hate to admit that, a bright future ahead of them. I think because of Jalen Hurts' experience, he's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. And Bo Nix is just his second year. I think that's going to be the main difference. I think Jalen Hurts will make better decisions, I guess I would say. Whereas I do feel like Bo Nix might have a turnover or 2 in this game, which will be the difference in the score. So 24-21, Philadelphia comes out on top and they remain undefeated. Then we have the Dolphins and the Panthers, and man, so the Dolphins are 1.5 point favorites, but they are now missing their best weapon in Tyreek Hill, who suffered that gruesome injury last week. Glad to hear that the surgery went well, from what I understand, but you never like to see that. I know he has a long road ahead of him in regards to recovery, but I'm hoping that it's speedy and he's able to actually play next year. I definitely don't like to see that happen to any player on any team. It was tough to watch. Like I said in my recap video from last week, that if you are squeamish, I would not watch that video because it was pretty gruesome. But in this game, they're not going to have Tyreek Hill, so I'm assuming that's going to have a negative effect on the offense, although I've heard some people say now Tua will be able to spread it out and utilize his other weapons a little bit more. But the thing is, Tyreek Hill always would draw attention, right? He would draw attention to himself because of the threat that he was. So now that defenses don't have to worry about that, are they going to be able to, is someone else going to be able to step up for Miami? Like Waddle, will he be able to step up for them? I'm not sure. We'll see. But because of that injury and because it just seems that the Panthers alternate weeks on how they perform. Last week they performed very poorly against the Patriots and got blown out. But the week before that, they scored 30 and shut the Falcons out. It's such a Jekyll and Hyde team. And so I'm going to take the Panthers on this one, thinking that this is their week to do well and that they'll win this game 30-20. Carolina wins the game outright. But we'll see. This one, it's hard to pick. Next game on the list, again, 1 p.m. slot. The Texans versus the Ravens. The Ravens are 3.5 point favorites. Now that we know that Lamar Jackson is not going to start that game, I'm even a little bit more confident in my pick because I did pick the Texans even when I thought Lamar Jackson might be back for this game. Now that he's not, I think the Texans do win this game 28-27, and that's going to put the Ravens in a really tough place because that means they will be 1-4. If you start out 1-4, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, the odds of you making the playoffs are definitely not good. I don't know how many teams, if any, have ever done that. I'm sure there's probably at least one, but I could be mistaken. But yeah, if they don't have Lamar Jackson, they're going to have to rely a lot on Derrick Henry. But they're already so depleted on defense and missing integral pieces. I think the Texans are able to take advantage of that. and win 28-27. I think it's a close game still because the Texans themselves have question marks that they need to answer. They haven't looked very good. They don't look like, again, 2 years ago where people were thinking that, wow, if this trend continues, they may be in the talks for Super Bowl contenders. I don't have that feeling for the Texans of this year for sure. But I definitely feel Houston can take advantage of these unfortunate injuries that the Ravens have had on their team this year, especially with Lamar Jackson being out. Hopefully he can come back soon. If the Texans can take advantage of that, I think they can find a way to win 28-27. Houston comes out on top. The last game in the 1 p.m. slot is the Giants versus the Saints. The Saints are 1.5 point favorites. This was a tough one for me to pick too because Jackson Dart was able to get a win in his first start. And part of me was like, man, I want to choose the Giants because they got a great defensive line and maybe Jackson Dart can do just enough to pull out the win in this game as well. What changed my mind is that the Saints actually, for a little while, hung in there with the Bills, 1. But 2, it is being played in New Orleans. I know that place can get pretty loud. I'm interested to see how Jackson Dart responds to a loud environment, if he's able to have type of composure and success that he did in the first week. This is going to be his first away game. I'm going to give the nod to the Saints. I know that's crazy because of how much I've been saying the Saints just look terrible, and I still think they're in rebuild mode as well. But I'd like to see Spencer Rattler get his first win as an NFL starter. And so I have New Orleans winning this 23-17. It might be kind of ugly of a game, but we'll see. I'm going to give Spencer Rattler the benefit of the doubt that he gets his first win because it's in New Orleans, and that because Jackson Dart is only making his second start as a NFL starting quarterback, that the noise will get to him just enough to where the Saints can pull off the victory. Moving to the 4:05 p.m. slot, we have 2 games. The first one is the Titans versus the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 7.5 point favorites, and I think they easily cover that. I think Arizona is going to come out with some motivation because last week they lost a very close game to their divisional rival, the Seattle Seahawks. Tennessee is just, again, they're in full rebuild mode. Cam Ward, his first year as a starting quarterback for the Titans. They're going to get him more pieces. I think he's still learning the process, learning the speed of the game. And I just think the Cardinals are going to be able to win this game pretty easily. The final score I have is Arizona 28, Tennessee 7. I think Tennessee struggles to move the ball, struggles to score points, and it's another long afternoon for Cam Ward and that Titans offense. So again, Cardinals 28-7. I think Kyler Murray has a good game. Marvin Harrison has a game where he can continue to build his confidence. And the Cardinals come away with a win and cover the spread easily. The next matchup in this slot is an interesting one. It is the Buccaneers Seahawks. The Seahawks are 3.5 point favorites playing at home. I think this is going to be a really good game. This might be one of those underrated games that people are going to be paying attention to. It's going to be a really good football game. Might end up being the best one of the week. Buccaneers versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks favored by 3.5. I think Tampa Bay bounces back in this game after last week's loss to the Eagles. I think they win 31-28 and actually get a win in Seattle, which is one of the toughest places, might be the next toughest place to play next to Arrowhead in Kansas City. But Tampa Bay comes out with a win with Baker Mayfield at the helm. He's been doing very well since he arrived in Tampa Bay. And so I think they're able to get a win. 31-28. Bucky Irving has a solid game as well. And Emeka Egbuka is going to be a key for Baker Mayfield. They have seemed to establish a pretty good connection as quarterback and receiver. I think that continues. And the Buccaneer defense is able to do just enough to cause a little bit of havoc and mayhem for the Seahawks offense. But it could go either way for sure. And it could be the other way around because Seattle has a pretty solid team and Mike McDonald is doing a great job there coaching and getting that organization or putting them in a position where they can compete for playoff spots for sure. And then possibly, I don't know if they're Super Bowl contenders this year, but possibly in the future, if this trend continues, we'll definitely be talking about them as potential Super Bowl representatives for the NFC. But in this game, I have the Buccaneers winning 31-28 over the Seattle Seahawks. The next slot we have is the 4:25 p.m. slot. And we have another intriguing matchup between the Commanders and the Chargers. The Commanders are getting Jaden Daniels back. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites, but that offensive line is beat up. And you could tell because Justin Herbert was running for his life, trying to escape pressure, trying to make plays. Any quarterback that is running for their life is going to have a lot harder time running the offense, especially if they're getting knocked down several times throughout the game. With Joe Alt being injured and their offensive line missing some key pieces, I think the Commanders can take advantage of that and win this game. In fact, my prediction is that they do win this game 28-24. They're able to do just enough to come out with a win. The Commanders have had injuries of their own. They lost Austin Eckler to Achilles tear. Jaden Daniels hadn't been playing the past couple of weeks because he was injured. And so we'll see how he looks coming back and playing in this game. But that was one of the reasons I also chose them, as from what it seemed like that he was going to play in this game and give them the best chance to win. I think he's able to do just enough to help the Commanders win, with the final score being the Commanders 28, the Chargers 24. The next game was the Lions versus the Bengals, with the Lions being 10.5-point favorites. It's played in Cincinnati, but I think it's going to be an ugly game in the sense that I think it's going to be a blowout. I have Detroit winning this 48-10. I have very little faith in Cincinnati right now. They've had poor showings the past 2 weeks. Almost tempted to just give them 3 again because that's how many points they've scored in the previous 2 games. It's just 3 points per game. But I thought I'd give them the benefit of the doubt to be able to get 10. But with that Detroit offense being as potent as it is and the Cincinnati defense being somewhat questionable, I think it's going to get ugly quickly. So I have the Lions beating the Bengals 48-10. Next, we have our Sunday night game, which is the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. Divisional game. It'll be interesting to see if Mike Vrabel brings a different mentality to the Patriots team, and he's brought a toughness. So we'll see how they do this game on, especially primetime game. Buffalo, one of the tougher places to play, and of course you're facing last year's MVP Josh Allen, who is without question one of the elite quarterbacks of the NFL. And so just having to deal with him and his abilities and his skill set is going to be challenging enough. I'm interested, A, because again, it's a divisional game, but B, because of it being Mike Vrabel's first year as coach for the Patriots. I'm interested to see how Drake May does in the prime time on Sunday Night Football. I think they'll do okay, but I don't have them beating the Bills. The Bills are a juggernaut of a team, and I just think there's too much talent and too much Josh Allen on the Bills side for the Patriots to overcome at this point. So I have Buffalo winning 30-21. I think it might be an interesting game for the first half, maybe somewhat into the third quarter, but I think Buffalo begins to pull away and then wins 30-21, with them continuing their stranglehold on the AFC East. And then we finish out the week with a really good game, Monday Night Football at 8:15 p.m. between the Chiefs, who are 3.5-point favorites, going into Jacksonville. The Chiefs had their best performance of the year this past week when they defeated the Baltimore Ravens and were able to take advantage of the unfortunate injuries of Ravens have had. Their offense looked phenomenal. Their offense looked like it desperately missed Xavier Worthy. And I'm glad that he's back. He got into a groove and it helped open up other players on the receiving team. And even helped open up the run game. So I'm hoping this trend continues. And by the Chiefs and the Jaguars have a great offensive line. They have one of the best running games. I think they might have the top rushing attack right now. And their defense leads the league in turnovers. So you're going to have to be careful. You can't make poor decisions against them because they'll make you pay. I think they've scored something like 40 points off those turnovers in an environment which will probably be loud. In Jacksonville, the Chiefs are going to have to make sure they're also mistake-free and try to play as close to perfect as they can to limit the penalties and make sure they're not shooting themselves in the foot. Or it's going to be hard enough to beat the Jaguars without any costly penalties. So you want to make sure you have all that cleaned up. I do have the Chiefs winning. I believe they'll go into Jacksonville because I think they're definitely the toughest opponent that Jacksonville is going to have faced this year so far. Their one loss was to the Bengals. I know Joe Burrow was still there, but they did lose to the Bengals. They've beaten the Niners, who are banged up themselves. And they've beaten, I'm trying to think of who else they've won against, but it's not as tough as the schedule that the Chiefs have had, where they've had to play the Chargers, a playoff team from last year, the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs, the Ravens, a playoff team from last year. And so I think that gives the edge to the Chiefs. Their competition has been stiffer, and this will be the toughest game the Jaguars have faced to this point in the season. And I have Kansas City going into Jacksonville winning 29-20. I think Steve Spagnuolo is arguably the best defensive coordinator of all time. And he'll have a game plan ready to help stymie that Jaguars offense and cause havoc for Trevor Lawrence. And of course, that'll all depend on the Chiefs' ability to limit the Jaguars' rush offense. If the Jaguars can establish a decent rushing attack, the Chiefs might be in trouble. I know their numbers are not great this year in their rush defense, but I think a lot of it had to do with that first game against the Chargers where Justin Herbert just ran all over them. And I think Steve Spagnuolo will have them prepared because this defense has seemed to play better as the season has progressed. So again, Chiefs 29, Jaguars 20 in the Monday night football game. And those are my picks. I'll see how I do. Again, it's kind of been a year of my predictions, but some of them I've gotten pretty close. So we'll see for this upcoming week after the football games are done where I nailed it, where I sailed it, where I failed it. So look for that video next week. But I appreciate you joining me today, and I thank you for your support. If you could like this video, I'd really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so as well. Until next time, God bless you guys. Remember that Jesus loves you, and I'll talk to you soon.